All right, Buck fans, it's a winning week, Thanksgiving week. The Bucs are back off the schneid, ended that two-game losing streak with an emphatic 30-10 W over the New York Giants on Monday Night Football. And we are 7-3, back on track. Welcome to the No Quarter Given podcast, the Week 12 edition, Thanksgiving edition as well. I'm your host, Jason Powers, along with my co-host, Peter Blake. Welcome, Peter.
What's going on, buddy? Happy Thanksgiving. And speaking of Thanksgiving, Daniel Jones was giving out plenty of turnovers last night, wasn't he?
Yes, and today, after all those turnovers, Mr. Jason Garrett got given his pink slip out of New York. That was kind of the news of the day was the firing of Jason Garrett by Joe Judge. From all indications, Joe Judge killed Jason Garrett in the press conference last night post-game, which led to the firing and the dismissal today as offensive coordinator in New York.
Yeah, that offense struggled. Look, they got lots of talent, but it comes down to, first and foremost, is Daniel Jones going to be your future franchise quarterback? I still think that's in doubt. And then on top of it, you have to keep Saquon Barkley healthy. But they do have some weapons there. You could see it last night. Kadarius Toney out of Florida really showed some flashes of brilliance. But besides that, that offensive line was atrocious. So you have to figure out, first, do you have a quarterback? If you do, you got to put a better line around them. And then you got to keep your premier running back healthy. And that's been difficult the last couple of years. So you kind of feel bad for Garrett. But, you know, at the end of the day, it's a production league.
Yeah, I mean, and you have to question, one, is Saquon Barkley premier anymore after his knee surgery, his ankle issues? Is he a premier running back, or do we always just think back to his rookie year of the great year he had his rookie year? He hasn't been the same since after that rookie year, even before his knee injury. He's had a full ACL reconstruction. He had an ankle issue. Is he that same guy as he was when he came out of Penn State?
I mean, that's the reason why you don't draft a running back in the first round anymore, because you can get one in the second, third, fourth round. You're exactly right. And you kind of wonder, because he hasn't been productive. He's been off injured, and you know, at a certain point, what is it? Availability is your best, what is it?
Yeah.
What is it? Availability is your
best ability. Is your best ability.
Right. So we'll see. But he hasn't been available, and he came up versus a Bucs defensive line without Vita Vea last night, second in the league, and they completely made him non-existent, which is what you had to do. You had to put the onus on Daniel Jones to win the game, and of course he couldn't.
And, you know, everybody in the question everybody in New York has, I mean, obviously Daniel Jones has been there. This is year 3, I believe. Yeah. You know, he's had some decent moments, but he's had way too many moments, knucklehead plays like last night. He's scrambling. He throws the ball completely across his body to nobody but Steve McClendon, who's laying on the ground when he catches the ball, basically. And there's just been too many moments like that for Daniel Jones, who, again, was the 6th overall pick in the draft. A lot of people thought that the Giants reached for him at number 6, could have got him later in the draft. You know, Dave Gettleman, the GM, under a lot of heat in New York for, you know, he's the one that put this offensive line together. You know, Solder, Hernandez, you know, Andrew Thomas, the other tackle spot that's been very critical. You know, so the question is Jones's production relative to what's been around him, or is Jones just not that good of a quarterback?
I think it's a combination of both, you know, because at the end of the day, you have to build around that franchise quarterback. But like he said, he's still committing the same mistakes he did as a rookie. You can't continue to do that. And I said last night on the pregame show on NSPN and I Love St. Pete, Bucs fans had to deal with that with Jameis Winston committing the same type of mistakes. So I'm not sure if you're ever going to get that out of him as much as potential as he has. At the end of the day, you can't turn over the ball in the NFL. He did it last night. He's done it throughout his career. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to shake that. And eventually, I think maybe they move on and go in a different direction, much like the Arizona Cardinals did. 1 year, Josh Rosen, and then Kyler Murray's your guy. Could be the same thing. It's taken a couple years, but they had to figure it out, and I think they have it figured out here eventually.
A lot of speculation that Dave Gettleman won't be the GM at the end of the year. The question will be, if he's not the GM, do the Maras, do they get rid of Joe Judge as well? The Mara family, the Giants, their tendency has been to give guys an extra couple years. I know lately they've been a little quick trigger, but they've given guys like Parcells, the guys back in the day when that were struggling, they gave them that extra year or two. It'll be interesting to see what they do with Joe Judge, if they give him another year with a new GM, or if he tells the new GM, hey, you get to make the decision on the coach.
I mean, that's how it should be. I mean, honestly, that's the way it should work. That's the way the framework should work in the NFL. You hire a new GM, the GM hires the coach. And may I suggest a couple of names out there? Louis Riddick, that would be the first guy I call as a GM. Possibly a Brian Daboll as the coach who had great development with a Josh Allen. Or, I don't know, the guy in Kansas City who hasn't gotten a call for a head coaching job, and the guy escapes my name right
Eric
now.
Bieniemy. Eric Bieniemy.
Why not? Give him a call if you're going to keep Daniel Jones around. But at the end of the day, clean house, get a new GM, get a new coach, get a direction at this point. And if Daniel Jones isn't your quarterback, start all over again.
And then again, I know we're not going to get into a whole lot in the draft, but this is not a great year for quarterbacks at the college level as far as big quarterbacks coming out. So there's not that one or two guys that you say, hey, that guy's going to be a top 5 pick as a quarterback. So that may be in a situation, again, some interesting names that could be available this offseason. Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, guys like that. Again, New York City is a big market. Do the Giants make a big splash? Remember, they have an extra first-round draft pick this year for the trade they made with the Bears, for the Bears to get Justin Fields. So they got 2 number 1s this year. They're going to be high picks. Both teams are struggling. So both picks will probably be in the top 10 or 12. So do you package a couple of those picks together, maybe to go after a guy like Russell Wilson, who I think this is the beginning of the end of Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll in Seattle?
I agree with you on that. And I think Russell Wilson would fit perfectly there with this
big market.
Right, big market.
His wife, Sierra.
Right, exactly. But you got to build an offensive line around him also. So if you have those 2 first-round picks, they should spend them on offensive linemen to once again protect Russell Wilson, because what's the reason why Wilson's out of Seattle? They're not putting enough around him. But in that same breath, Russell Wilson is not helping out that situation by having one of the richest contracts in the National Football League. Take a little less, and I don't know, maybe your team is able to have some financial flexibility, just saying.
All right, let's get to the winning side of this formula last night, the Buccaneers. Yes. What'd you think of the Buccaneers performance? I liked that they came out and had to hurry up offense. That first drive went right down the field and scored. I was at the game. We were sitting in the end zone, so we had very good seats. We were about 25 rows up, so we had a great view of things. I liked that they came out and played up tempo offensively. Gronk's presence back in the offense opens up more space for everybody in the offense. You saw that. Gronk was very involved again last night, and I really thought the efficiency on offense was pretty good, other than the one gaffe by Evans, which created the turnover late in the second quarter. I thought they did play pretty well offensively.
They had to, because look, here's the Giants coming into the situation 3-6, playing pretty good football. At the end of the day, the Bucs are not playing good football. Losers of 2 in a row, especially to the Washington football team, where they got thoroughly embarrassed. They came out with urgency. They talked about it all week long. BA talked about how this team was dumb last night. They cleaned up those mistakes, even though they did have the 1 turnover in the first half. After that, it was relatively clean, and the defense was able to get off the field 1 for 9 for that Giants offense on 3rd down conversions. They also put pressure on Jones, which in turn caused some turnovers. So to me, very clean ball game last night. That's what you're supposed to do. And the next challenge will be the Indianapolis Colts on Sunday.
We'll get to that here at the end of this episode. We'll definitely get to this big matchup against Jonathan Taylor, Carson Wentz, and the Colts up in Indianapolis this week. So defensively, I liked, again, you mentioned defensively, I liked Sean Murphy-Bunting back in the lineup. That's, again, helps out that secondary a little bit. If they can get Carlton Davis back here in the next couple of weeks, who knows if it's 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever it is. Vita Vea is probably going to be back in a couple of weeks. So if you can get healthy, the schedule's pretty favorable after you got Indianapolis and Buffalo coming up. But after those two, you've got a very, very favorable schedule the last 5-6 weeks of the season.
You're absolutely right. And BA was talking about it today. Vea may be back this Sunday versus the Colts. And you look at the difference between that back end with Sean Murphy-Bunting coming back there, really solidified that secondary. BA talked about how they played a lot better than he thought they would. And then on top of it, looking over at the offensive end, Rob Gronkowski, not only as a pass catching threat, but also as an inline blocker. He makes so much of a big difference. And I was laughing about it last night. He is basically Tom Brady's security blanket.
Oh, absolutely. That's the thing that you love. Third down, third and medium, third and short. You know, if it's 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6, Gronkowski in a lot of situations is probably the first. If he may not be the first option on the play card, but when Brady drops back to pass, if he sees it Gronk open, he's going to disregard the play and he's throwing the ball to Gronk because he's so reliable with his hands. He knows how to run routes, get to the first down markers, and he's just very good after. You saw he had a big 3rd down, 3rd and 10, I think it was, for about 25-yard catch. Again, he was just, and again, he opens up space for other guys, for Evans, for Godwin, for Brayton. When OJ Howard and Brady are in the game together with Gronk, he just opens up space for everybody.
He really does. And you could see that last night, getting through the zone and just Brady trusting him, even when he's not necessarily open right away, just the timing of it, their timing together. And that offense is going to be that much better. Of course, it looked better last night, but Antonio Brown, more than likely, is coming back to this offense. So they're going to get all their pieces back. Ali Marpet was out last night with, it looks like an oblique injury. Aaron Stenny came in.
Yep.
He performed very well. The offensive line, that was another big key to it. They kept Brady clean, and when you keep Brady clean, you're over 70% completion percentage passer, 21 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. That's the key. When it's not clean, he's under 50%. That's amazing.
All right, before we get to the Colts series, 2 things I want to hit on. Mm-hmm. 1, Paul Stewart in town. We were fortunate enough to go have dinner with Paul last Thursday here in the Bay Area over in Clearwater, and awesome guy to meet. He was in town. Obviously, he's been in town. He's going to be in town for about 10 days from over in England. Again, buckpower.com. We're part of his podcast network. That's what this podcast is being broadcasted on. Just a cool guy to meet. So much history, so many stories from London, from here, how he got started with the website, just all things Bucs. Your thoughts about Paul Stewart?
Oh, he's awesome. I mean, and you could listen to the guy talk about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers all night long. So many great stories. And then on top of it, we're at Hooters, the world famous Hooters, the first one in Clearwater on Gulf to Bay, my neck of the woods. So the food was good. The conversation was even better. And it was great meeting Mr. Paul Stewart.
And rumor has it, somebody in the party had some eyes for the waitress.
She looked like Megan Fox to me with blonde hair. I mean, honestly, and you saw her too. So yeah, I mean,
Miss Sierra.
Yes, Miss Sierra, and she looked like Megan Fox. And she's like, "No, I don't." And I'm like, "Yes, you do." And I, gave her my phone, and
I saw somebody exchanging some Instagrams, some phone numbers.
Absolutely. Why not? You got to do that. Look, I'm single. I'm not married. I got no kids.
There you go.
I feel like I'm 23. I'm in my prime, baby. I'm ready to go.
There you go, Peter Blake. I like it.
Thank you,
that's funny.
Man. Thank you.
All right.
Follow her too on Instagram.
All right. Thanksgiving week. The Bucs have only made 1 appearance on Thanksgiving. We chronicled this back in week 1. They played in Dallas 2006. Tony Romo torched us for 5 touchdowns, 38-10 Cowboys in a thumping of the Buccaneers. Give me it doesn't have to be Buccaneer games. Just give me in general any big Thanksgiving memories, watching games, things like that on Thanksgiving.
I mean, Miami and Dallas in the snow, and it's
Leon Letts.
Yes.
Leon
Lett making another dumb play, which, he did that in the Super Bowl against the Buffalo Bills, where it looks like he's going to score a touchdown and he doesn't have the ball and he gets the ball knocked out. You're exactly right. And then, of course, it gives Miami new life at that point. They go on to believe to kick a field goal to win the game. That was probably the most exciting Thanksgiving game I've ever seen. Everything else, for me, it's done in this order. You watch football, you eat, and you sleep. And look, if the game is bad, then you're able to get more helpings. You're able to sleep through it. You wake up. Now you got 3 games. You got 3 games, Powers, instead of 2. So you have an opportunity to really get into that sleep, because a lot of these games usually are not that exciting. That's the great thing about Thanksgiving. No work. You can eat all day long. You can sleep all day long. And of course, you can watch football all day long.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Dallas and Detroit have always been the staples on Thanksgiving. Here in the last probably 10 years or so, they've added that third game in prime time, and they usually try to make that prime time game a big matchup. This year it's New Orleans, Buffalo, Thanksgiving night, which would be an interesting matchup in New Orleans with the Saints. So, back in the day, there was only 2 games on Thanksgiving. So like you said, by 7:00, it was lights out. The tryptophan was in full effect, and Peter Blake was sleeping on the couch. But now you got to stay up for that 8:00 game on NBC.
Well, maybe. I mean, again, those first 2 games, but you're exactly right. That stuff started like 1:30 if the Detroit Lion game is boring, and usually they're not a good team at all. The last 10 to 15 years, they haven't been good ever since Barry Sanders left. I mean, they had Calvin Johnson, but it hasn't been competitive. This game probably won't be competitive this year. You have Dallas and Las Vegas Raiders, and then you got Buffalo and New Orleans, and to me, both teams right now in that primetime matchup are struggling, but Buffalo really needs a win.
Yes.
These could be all blowout games. Honestly, they could be blowouts.
Like I said,
Tim looking like Susan Boyle out there, having more interceptions in college. He had 13 interceptions and 1 touchdown for Connecticut. How does he have an NFL job as an NFL starter? How is he in the league? I don't understand. Like, Tim Tebow had better stats in college, could probably produce better than Tim Boyle, and yet Boyle is starting for the Lions. I don't get it.
The rumor is they think Jared Goff is going to be back Thursday for the Lions, so we may see Jared Goff against Andy Dalton, because no Justin Fields for the Bears because of the rib injury. So we could have a Tim Boyle versus Andy Dalton snoozer at 1:00, 12:30. Yes. That would be an absolute disaster.
Well,
jeez.
That's what I'm thinking. I mean, unless you're a Bears fan or a Lions fan, you don't care at that point. So that's when, once again, that all that's what's it called that you said?
Tryptophan.
When that kicks in, then you start to fall asleep. But you got to at least get 2 helpings. You got to get 2 helpings, and then you can fall asleep after that. The game is boring, but hopefully it's not. But you're exactly right. It could be Boyle, and I think it will be Boyle versus Dalton. And the rumor is that Matt Nagy will be fired at the end of the game, whether he wins it or loses it. So
that is the raging rumor these last couple of days. Is Friday will be D-Day for Matt Nagy. I would imagine for sure if they lose, but even potentially if they win too Thursday, which would be interesting.
How was he not fired after the Ravens game? I mean, Andy Dalton comes in, throws 2 touchdowns, big play. Less than 1 minute to go, your defense is on the field, you give up deep plays to a second string quarterback. I mean, what the hell is going on with the Bears, and how was Matt Nagy not fired after that?
Well, they didn't fire him because they have a game 4 days later. That's why if they fire him Friday, they'll have the weekend to get a new coach and all that stuff, where they're not going to fire a guy with 2 days to prepare for the next game. So
that'll be better than what that was. I mean, how do you lose the game with that big of that?
I got you.
I mean, I get what you're saying. I understand where the NFL is, but then again, I don't understand the NFL. Once again, how does Tim Boyle have a job? How does Matt Nagy have a job? Unsolved mysteries.
I got you. All right, let's get to Bucs Colts.
Yes.
Colts lead the series overall 8-6. Remember the Colts, for you younger fans, they used to be in Baltimore way back in the day, before they had the overnight move in the middle of the night to Indianapolis, the famous Mayflower moving truck that moved everybody from Baltimore to Indianapolis with the Ursays. I think that happened in the early 80s, 82, 83, something like that, if I recall. But they've been in Indianapolis ever since. 1979, the reason that we're going to talk about this game, because as we've talked about in several episodes, 79 was the first big year for the Buccaneers from a playoff perspective. They won 29-26 over the Colts. I believe it was game 1 of the year, first game of the year. They're down 17-0 in the first quarter, come all the way back to go to overtime, and Neil O'Donoghue kicks a field goal early in overtime to send the Buccaneers to the 3-point W.
And kind of like what a foreshadowing of things to come, if you will, because that team was down 17-0. Bucs fans are saying, "Oh no, not again!" But you have Doug Williams, you have that offense that comes back, and that was their biggest comeback in their history. So
At the point, yep.
Big game and a great start. Not necessarily 17-0, but coming back and winning it 29-26.
10 Buccaneers sacks in that game. 10.
Wow. Yeah, wow. That defense was pretty good that year. Pretty good.
I mean, I bet that's still a franchise record. That 10 would be my guess.
That would be my guess too. And that 3-4 defense led, of course, by Leroy Selman and Richard Batman Wood, and a lot of greats on that team.
Guys like Randy Crowder, Mark Cotney, all those guys back in, Batman Wood, like David Lewis and all those guys. So yeah, I mean, Randy Crowder with a bunch of sacks in that opening game. But again, I think that kind of game is what catapulted the Bucs to that kind of year, knowing they could come back from a big deficit. I think the guys had all grown together through the expansion years and Leroy and all that. So I think that was a great, boost heading into that early in that 1979 season.
Absolutely.
1980s. We're only going to I'm going to mention one thing about the 80s. We lost every game against the Colts in the 80s. Every game. I think they played 3 or 4 times in the 80s. We lost them all.
And I believe it was 84 they left, because the 83 draft, of course, the whole controversy was at the time.
Correct.
Ernie Accorsi, who was the GM, of course, ended up being the GM of the Giants very later. And he also had his own quarterback controversy, but it was the other shoe on the other foot, if you will. He drafted John Elway, of course. Jack Elway, his father, didn't want to go there, didn't like the coach. John went with him, didn't want to go. They threatened with the Yankees, and eventually he got traded for, I believe, Chris Hinton.
And a bunch of draft picks.
And John Elway went on to be a Hall of Famer. Hinton was okay, and they were right. And they asked the owner at the time, who was Irsay, are you moving? No, we're not moving. And eventually the Mayflower trucks pulled up the next year and they moved.
If you fans out there, if you've not seen this, ESPN did an unbelievable 30 for 30 on the 1983 draft.
Yep.
Which chronicled all those trade rumors and speculations. It was an awesome documentary of the 1983 draft that had Elway, Marino, all those guys from 83, Jim Kelly involved. So look that up, check it out. Again, Ernie Accorsi was the GM of the Colts and said, I'm not going to, if you're going to, he basically told the owner, if you want to fire me, but I'm drafting John Elway. Right. Even though he says he's not coming, I'm drafting him. I'm not letting somebody else draft John Elway.
And think about it. I mean, if they go for Dan Marino at that point, I mean, there's so many things that could have happened. They could have went for other quarterbacks. You could have traded out. But as of course he said, it was his best prospect he ever saw. He was going to do it, and he did it. And he only took like 1 second or something, 1 second, and they drafted him. And then after that, they knew. I mean, they had to know. It was like a Bo Jackson situation. And then Accorsi, of course, being the general manager of the New York Giants, what was he involved in?
The Eli Manning fiasco that turned into Phillip Rivers and all that stuff.
Correct. That's right. They drafted Phillip Rivers, of course, traded Rivers to San Diego for Eli Manning, and the rest is history. So it's funny how the NFL works. The circle of life, if you will. A little Lion King reference for you.
That's it. All right, 1997. Again, the reason I picked this year, that year's game was, again, that was a playoff year for the Buccaneers. Again, Tony Dungy was in, I believe, year 3. Year 2, was it year 2 or let me see here. Let me check my notes.
That was year 2. 96 was his first year. Dungy was in his second year. 97, of course, that's the year they went 10-6.
Correct. And they went to the playoffs. And again, Trent Dilfer led a comeback win in Indianapolis. Michael Husted kicks a game-winning field goal late in the fourth quarter after Trent does two nice drives in the last 10 minutes of the game for the Bucs to pull out a 31-28 win up in the RCA Dome.
Yeah, Carl the Truth Williams with the tying touchdown. I watched that on the site there, buckpower.com. Paul, once again, does a great job, brought back so many memories. I want to go back to 92 because this is one of my first Bucs games I ever went to.
Okay.
And that was during the Sam Weiss era, and there were expectations at that point. In fact, the Bucs were getting out to a good start that year. Of course, it's a day after my birthday, and of course, on my birthday in 92 that year we had at least 25 tornadoes touchdown. And on that day also, Florida State lost to the Miami Hurricanes. I'll never forget it.
I was probably on the I was on the sideline of that game that day in 1992, Florida State, Miami.
That was in Coral Gables. That was the year after 91, correct?
It was 91 was wide right, the first one. Yep. 92, yep. 92 was I was there. I was there.
Was it wide left? And it was Tamrick Vanover who had a big game. Was it not?
You talk about one of the sickest athletes I've ever seen in my life. Tamrick Vanover as a freshman at Florida State. The speed that guy had, he was an unbelievable athlete. And I know he played in the NFL for several years and he had some off the field issues, but as a freshman at Florida State, that guy was an unbelievable athlete with unbelievable speed.
Who was the starting quarterback in that game, my friend?
Which for who?
For the Florida State Seminoles.
I believe that was 92.
92.
Yeah. I believe that was not Charlie Ward yet. He was the next year. It was,
I thought it was Charlie Ward. I thought Ward had 2 years.
He played 93 and 94. The next two after I left, because I left Florida State at the end of the 92 season. Mm-hmm. He came in and played the following years when his fast break offense and all that really took off. So I'm trying to think 1992, who was the quarterback? Dang,
I feel like you got to look it up at this point. I mean, I feel like I should look it up right now.
We will look it up, folks.
Let's take a look at this. 92 starting quarterback for the Seminoles. I thought it was Charlie Ward.
Look at you look it up and tell me, and I'll talk about the. This is some great podcasting right here.
See, this is where we need.
That's okay, and I should know that because I was there. I don't know why I don't know who was I can't remember who was the starting quarterback.
Well, they were 11-1 that year.
That 92 year was weird. They had. I mean, it lists because I remember Derek Brooks was on that team in 92. Mm-hmm. You know, I played with, some of those guys were really, really.
The quarterback of that team was Charlie Ward.
Was he the starter?
They had Matt Fryer.
No, he was a wide receiver. You had another guy, William Floyd, who's from St. Petersburg, fullback.
Charlie Ward, my friend. I told you. Because Charlie Ward at that the next year has the Heisman year, and that's when they lose to Notre Dame, but they end up beating Nebraska in the Orange Bowl.
Correct.
Goodness gracious, that's a long time ago, my friend. I remember all that.
Yes, that was
Charlie Ward,
and that was a year. Yep, Danny Cannell was on that team. Danny Cannell played a little bit that year as well. So a tremendous football team. And Tamrick Vanover, I'll never forget. He ran a couple kickoffs back. He was like the kickoff guy his freshman year, kickoff return man. He ran a couple kickoff backs for touchdowns. Unbelievable. Great athlete, just unbelievable. Really, really good player. And that guy was a player. All right.
Yeah, he was.
2003, the infamous Monday Night Football meltdown by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The biggest comeback in Monday Night Football history. The return of Tony Dungy, who had been released. Obviously, Gruden, they'd won the Super Bowl the year before. Just unbelievable. That game was 35-14 with less than 5 minutes to go in the game in Tampa. I remember watching it, and it turns into a 38-30, 35-30. Somehow the game gets to 35-35 at the end of regulation.
Well, the somehow was Brian Kelly goes out of the game, and you got Tim Wansley out of Georgia trying to be the next Deion Sanders, and he was getting burnt by Marvin Harrison and Reggie Wayne. So that's the reason why it ended up 35-35. Peyton Manning showed his ability, and the defense couldn't do anything, couldn't get out of their way. And then they missed a field goal in overtime.
Vanderjagt missed a field goal, and Simeon Rice gets called for jumping over the center, illegally contacting the center, hurdling, basically trying to jump over the center. They get to re-kick it, and Vanderjagt makes the second kick in overtime to send the Bucs to the worst Monday night loss in history of Monday Night Football. My thought that all that was how ironic was it that Tony Dungy, a defensive guy, He's got Peyton Manning now. They're getting killed. They come back from the depths of defeat, offensively related, and they win 38-35.
Yeah, 38-35 that year was really disappointing, and it started out pretty well with them going into the link, of course, and beating Philadelphia 17-0, and everybody thinking, you know what, this defense is intact. They're going to win another Super Bowl, but it did not happen because of injuries that year, especially Joe Jurevicius getting hurt, Mike Allstott going out, and the Carolina Panthers, the arrival of the Carolina Panthers, and I believe that was the year that they faced the New England Patriots.
Absolutely. Led by one Jake Delhomme.
Yes.
Our buddy Jake Delhomme from back, who give that guy credit. He had a hell of a little run of about 5 or 6 years with the Panthers.
Sure.
Took him to a Super Bowl. Nobody knew who Jake Delhomme was. He kind of came from the ashes. Kind of reminds me of a Taylor Heineke kind of story, that nobody knew who he was. He got a chance in Carolina. He just gradually got better and better, and he led that team with Steve Smith to the Super Bowl, where they once again lost to Vinatieri and the Patriots at the gun.
And the controversy in that Super Bowl was what?
You tell me.
Janet Jackson and Justin Timberlake.
The proverbial nipple.
That was it.
Papa Nip.
Was the Super Bowl. It was an exciting Super Bowl. It really was. And you talk about Steve Smith, Muhsin Mohammed.
Yeah.
Was on that team, and defensively,
Julius Peppers.
Oh, he's a buck killer. I mean, Kenyatta Walker is still trying to block and not able to do that. And the other kid in the middle, Chris Jenkins.
Oh, and some dude named Brady was the quarterback for the Patriots at that time. Some dude who's didn't have much of a career, I guess, huh?
No, not at all. Yeah, some guy didn't make the Super Bowl in 2002. Everybody's like, the Patriots, they're done. Yeah, it's not their decade. They turn out to have a dynasty.
All right, 2019, another shootout. Year one of Bruce Arians, 38-35. Jameis Winston sets a franchise record, 456 yards passing, just a complete score-a-thon. And at that time, it was December, we all thought Arians and Jameis Winston might be a partnership here. Mm-hmm. But then we saw how the fateful last couple of games ended. I was at the Houston game. Obviously, you had the Atlanta game that ended the 19 season with the overtime interception. Just your thoughts as Arians and Winston were going through that 2019 year. We all had high hopes. We knew there was a lot of interceptions still, but we're thinking, okay, with this talent, with Coach Arians coaching them up a little bit, maybe Jameis Winston can get rid of some of the turnovers.
Yeah, I mean, that was the rumors, but he couldn't do it because he was throwing to Leonard in that game early. They were getting down 7 to 14 points, and here comes the offense. The great part about the offense and Jameis Winston is, no risk it, no biscuit, but unfortunately the turnovers really killed it. They won that day. But these long drawn-out shows that I used to do for Bucs Report as a platform used to go 2-3 hours trying to explain to people he's going to get better. He's going to get better with this turnover situation. He'll come back next year. He'll be in a second year of his offense. He'll do a lot better. Of course, that didn't necessarily turn out because he killed it with the turnovers, went 30 for 30. But they also remember 61 yards to Mike Evans, and he's out for the year with the hamstring injury. And then Godwin goes out. So you're down to Brashard Perryman, who was playing on Monday night, and he was productive, and he leaves in that season in free agency. So it was a crazy time. A lot of rumors going around that they were set on Winston. Of course, they weren't.
And the question that we'll never know, probably till 10 years down the road, is, and we may never know this ever, from Arians and Jason Light, if Tom Brady doesn't become available, what would the Bucs have done? Would they have re-signed Winston to maybe a short-term contract? There was talk of Teddy Bridgewater. What would the Bucs have done at the quarterback spot if Tom Brady hadn't become available through free agency?
Well, I always heard there was some back channeling going on after the Carolina game in London where he had like 5 or 6 turnovers. And again, you would try to go on these shows and say, it was the offensive line and this and that and the other thing. But at the end of the day, it always stayed consistent with Winston making some crazy throws and doing some crazy things. And they weren't always good and weren't always an advantage to this team and put this team in a hole. And I get it. A lot of people say, well, you had an explosive offense. Yeah, but you're putting your defense in a situation where they're on the short field, so they're not as effective. And now we're just turning the page with Tom Brady, with him not turning over the ball. It's just like night and day at this point. But you're exactly right. I think there was some back channeling. I think they were exploring it. And of course, Jason Light was the first one that made the call. That just came out in Sports Illustrated to Brady's agent. So they were absolutely interested. And you're exactly right. A lot of people around the league, a lot of people in league circles said there was no way Tom Brady was going to get out of New England. It was just, a negotiating ploy, maybe hard feelings. They could put it together. Too many years together. But you know what? It worked out.
It did. And just being in the stadium last night, you can just feel the presence that Tom has amongst the fans. They're so confident, the fans are. I mean, just the little 10-yard, the one time he ran for 10 yards, the emotion he showed when he got the first down, he was staring right at us in the end zone, just pumping his fist, pointing. Again, it's a game in November. It was an important game for the Bucs, but just the emotion that guy shows, that how much he loves the game, even at 44 years old, is just so thrilling to see as a fan. The stadium is always, let's go, Tom. I mean, there's just so much confidence in the stands. It's just a fun feeling to be in that stadium like that.
It really is. And I know what you're talking about, the 10-yard run, which really not only pumps up that fan base, but pumps up that coaching staff and the players around him. Here's a 44-year-old quarterback that's trying to get that 10 yards, doing everything he can. Supposedly he can't run. He's successful in it. That gives you the momentum for that team going forward against the Giants. And I think that's one of the big parts about urgency. They stressed it all week long. We want to be urgent. We want to come out and score. We don't want to be lethargic. We don't want to be a stupid team. And they proved that last night. And Brady is a direct reflection of that team. Make no mistake about it.
Absolutely. No, absolutely not. All right, let's get to Sunday in Indianapolis. Kind of a storyline that kind of is getting, I'm sure it'll get some more attention as we get closer to the game. This is Bruce Arians' first return to Indianapolis as a head coach.
Wow.
After he, obviously he took over for Chuck Pagano with the cancer issue, that when he became the interim coach, he then had he took the Colts to the playoffs, ended up getting the Arizona job. Just Arians is coming back to Indianapolis. It'll be interesting to see what the crowd's, response is to Arians with all he did for that organization during those tough times when Chuck Pagano was going through the cancer treatments.
Yeah, coach of the year, 9-2 for Chuck Pagano. Great coaching resume by BA. And of course, I think the main matchup not only is BA returning to Indy, but also this Jonathan Taylor, who BA was talking about today, how he loved him coming out of Wisconsin. There were people out there saying, well, you got too many carries. He's not going to transition over to the NFL. Oh, really?
Right.
In the MVP conversation, and it's going to be against the second-ranked rush defense, which, by the way, may have Vita Vea back. So that is going to be the matchup, Jason Powers. Offensive line versus defensive line. Quentin Nelson, Pro Bowler, versus Vita Vea.
Sue.
Dominican Sue and Shaq Barrett and JPP. Boy, oh boy, get your popcorn ready. Buckle up that seatbelt. It may be a bumpy ride, but I like the Bucs in the close one.
No, I mean, again, I think if you look at the matchup, if you're the Buccaneers, especially from a defensive perspective, you want to put the ball in Carson Wentz's hands. Make him beat you, throwing the ball. They got Pittman's a good receiver. He's had a really good year. They don't have a lot else other than the Michael Pittman Jr. at the wideout spot. So, they're tight. They use their tight ends a lot of misdirection, throwbacks, things like that to the tight ends. Reich is a pretty good play caller, but put the ball in Carson Wentz's hands. He's shown he's not afraid to throw the ball to the other team. Can we catch it when he throws it to us? And two, he gets a little careless with the ball in the pocket as well. So strip sacks, things like that. We saw him throw the one left-handed interception out of the end zone, which was a disaster. But make Carson Wentz win the game for the Colts. Don't let this be a 2nd and 4, 2nd and 3 situation. Shut down the Colts running game on first down. Put the game in Carson Wentz's hands, and I think the Buccaneer defense will be able to have some success. Conversely, Indianapolis's defense is a little underrated. They're pretty good. Mm-hmm. You got DeForest Buckner. You got Darius Leonard. They got a pretty good secondary. So again, how do the Buccaneers attack this Colts defense? You saw last week. The Bills tried to throw it every down. It seemed like 4 interceptions for Josh Allen. you have to mix in the running game. I think they did a good job last night. Fournette, your boy Ronald Jones with some consistent running. Again, screens. They threw a lot of screens, check downs, things like that. That's then going to open up the outside for Godwin and Evans and for Gronkowski up the seam to do their business.
And here's a statistic for you, Jason Powers. The Colts are 6-5 on the season. They're 6-0 this year when they rush for more than 125 yards. They are 0-5 when they rush for less than 125. And guess what? The Bucs all year long have only allowed 78 yards a game, 784 rushing yards on the season. Once again, get your popcorn ready.
This is a game, again, this is a perfect kind of game for Devin White and Levante David.
Yep.
Sue and McClendon or Sue and Roaches are going to be occupying the guard and the center and the guards. This is a Devin White kind of game. You want some Jonathan Taylor? Here he comes.
Yep. That's it. That's it. Mano a mano. Nothing fancy. Although, if the Bucs are looking for the running game, of course, you talked about it. Michael Pittman Jr., who, by the way, had a famous father who played for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers,
yes.
Michael Pittman. So it's just crazy. Once again, the circle of life in the National Football League.
In a way you can neutral if you're the Buccaneers, again, like they did last night. Yep. If you can get out in front early, 10-0, 14-3 kind of score, that neutralizes how much they're going to be able to use Jonathan Taylor. So play with the lead, get the lead. That's going to then dictate how the Colts then have to play. And again, I think if Carson Wentz has to throw it 40 times, advantage Buccaneers.
Advantage Buccaneers, but look, they've got to be road warriors at this point. 5-0, Jason, at home, scoring over 30 points a game, and only 23.4 on the road at 2-3. So
right.
Look, if you don't get the number one seed, you're going to be on the road. So you better start winning now. You better figure this road situation out because they're a different team. And if you come out and you set the table, if you will, using the Thanksgiving reference, then that basically takes the crowd out of the game. You get a big score, you get first score, you take the crowd out of the game, you put the Colts in a situation where they have to be one-dimensional and takes their running game out of it. That's what you want.
And and remember, fans, this game is the 17th game of the schedule. This was the 17th game where the Buccaneers where the AFC hosts all the games this year, and the NFC will have the 9 home games next year. So this is theoretically the 9th road game for the Buccaneers. This was the matchup that was the 17th matchup based on the extra game being added to the schedule. Even though it's this week of the season, it was the 17th game that was added. So another little intricacy of this game, that this was theoretically the 9th road game for the Buccaneers. So give me a prediction, Peter Blake. We got a 1:00 game. You and I are going to be at Ducky's.
Yeah.
Pre-game, halftime, post-game.
Yep.
Give me a prediction from the what's the name of that? Lucas Oil Stadium.
I'll go 31-28 Tampa Bay. Definitely tune in because I may change that score prediction. And of course, tune in to NSPN. I love St. Pete and the evolution of sports talk television. It's the Sports Web, live tomorrow with Dennis Phillips of ABC Action News, Leo Haggerty, the legend, Harry the Greek, my professional handicapper. Who knows? Maybe even the Power Man will get on. Do 3 things for me. We all know. We all love them. Bring your passion. Bring your excitement. Just don't bring any nonsense. I'm your host, Peter Blake, giving you something to think about.
That's right. Peter does an awesome job with the setup at the pregame show at Ducky's on Sunday. If you're in the Tampa Bay area, I know it's a long weekend for a lot of people traveling and all that, but if you're back in the Bay Area Sunday, stop by Ducky's. We'll be there. Again, it's a rare 1:00 game for the Buccaneers, and it's a big game. So I'm sure Ducky's will be packed. They got a great menu, great service, great staff, great setup, TVs galore. You can watch any game you want. They do a great job putting all the games on all the time. So we'll be out there Sunday, Ducky's on West Kennedy Boulevard. Check out my Powers on Sports podcast and as well. And I also got to before we get out of here, I got to give a shout out to TJ Reeves. I got to see TJ last night at the game. I went down to halftime and went and saw him in the end zone for a couple minutes. So TJ did great work with the Buccaneer Radio Network. He's got his own, go to the 3 Dog Thirsty podcast. TJ Reeves is involved as well with that. And again, I want to thank Paul Stewart, buckpower.com. I know Paul and TJ, we're taping this on Tuesday night. they're at the Lightning game tonight together, Paul and TJ.
Yeah, I know. And last check, the Lightning were winning 1-0. Of course, their big time injuries coming back, hopefully not to haunt them. Nikita Kucherov and Braden Point out indefinitely. So we'll see how the Lightning can pick it up. But yeah, it's the
where were our tickets?
I know.
Where the heck is our tickets, TJ?
Where are our tickets, TJ? Uncle TJ, where are the tickets at? Come on, we're on the Paul Stewart World Tour here. We want to go to the Lightning game. We don't want to sit at home.
I mean,
we can do the podcast out there. I'll bring my camera, my lights, and everything. We all know about that.
My gosh.
Come on.
All right, one more thing I want to promote. We're going to also be, before we get out of here, we're going to be covering the Jake Paul boxing event in Tampa, December 18th at Amalie Arena. 2 football guys are fighting on this card. Peter Blake, Frank Gore, and Darren Williams.
I mean, could it get
NBA guy, Darren Williams, NBA guy for the Utah Jazz.
I'll tell you right now, does he go LeBron James on him? I mean, does the NBA player go LeBron James, or is it Frank Gore? To me, it's Frank Gore. I mean, how do you root against Frank Gore? The guy has played forever in the National Football League. I can't believe he doesn't have a job right now. His toughness, his tenacity, it'll be a good fight. But of course, all eyes will be on Jake Paul versus Tommy Fury. I mean,
and we will be there. You and I and TJ Reeves will be there covering the fight as well. One more nugget of information I'm going to drop on you. Tuesday night, this just happened. Adrian Peterson cut by the Tennessee Titans tonight.
Yeah, he's done. He's pretty much done at this point. I actually predicted him to go over 100 yards versus the Texans. It didn't happen. So, yeah, I'm not looking too good on that prediction right now.
And Peter, I got to give you one more update on me.
Yes.
I'm in a survivor pool, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm one of 4 people left for 5 G's.
I hope you get it, my friend.
My Buccaneers was my pick last night in my survivor pool. So a bunch of people lost on Tennessee on Sunday against those Texans. I have my pick was the Buccaneers. I'm one of four or five people left in a $5,000 survivor pool. I offered up a settlement, so I think I'm going to probably cash about $500 or $600, and then we're going to play for the rest of the money. So I'm going to have a little extra Christmas money. Hopefully I will. They're going to settle. We're going to have a negotiated settlement, but I'm going to cash about $600, and then we're going to play for the remaining $2,500.
What are you getting me?
Well, if you get me to the finish line, brother, we'll have a nice dinner out. How about that?
That sounds good. It sounds good, my friend.
We will have a nice dinner out celebrating the year 1 of the No Quarter Given podcast. How about that?
Love it. Love it. Sounds good, Jason Powers.
All right, my prediction score is going to be Bucs 33, Indianapolis 24, 33-24 final in Indianapolis. Brady with another good game. Ryan Suckup's going to have some field goals. I think you're going to see a lot of offense in the game, and the Bucs will do just enough on defense to get it done to go to 8-3. So for Peter Blake, Jason Powers, No Quarter Given podcast, Paul Stewart. If you haven't seen that, go to his podcast as well. He's going back to England in a few days, but we appreciate it. Subscribe, rate, and review. Tell your friends about us. No Quarter Given podcast. We are your home for Buccaneers rivalries all throughout the year. Next week, it will be I believe it's the Buffalo Bills. Is that correct?
No, it's the Atlanta Falcons.
My bad. In Atlanta. Yeah. I might actually be going to that game, by the way. I'll know that later in the week. I might be going up to Atlanta for a little Saturday, Sunday, Alabama, Georgia, Buccaneer Falcon doubleheader in Atlanta next weekend.
Well, I better have, some post-game reaction from you. I always enjoy that, my friend.
You got it. All right, Peter Blake, have a great Thanksgiving. Tell your mom, keep up the good cooking.
Yes.
The tryptophan. I'll be at my dad and stepmom's house eating like a pig. Hopefully not too much. Some good mashed potatoes. And Buck fans, we'll see you next week at 8-3 and the Atlanta Falcons on the No Quarter Given podcast. Have a great week.